to today's episode of the dialogue. So, I am once again very excited to actually get on the platform and describe the information that we're going to be talking about today. Today is going to be a very interesting topic. It is something that is very close to my heart, and it's actually a privilege and an honor to be able to talk about it because God has made this a testimony for me, which means that I have actually overcame this issue that we're going to be talking about today. So please stay tuned. Make sure that you follow or subscribe to the content, whether you're on YouTube or you're actually tuning in through Spotify or Apple. Make sure that you share it with somebody. As you know, our mantra on the show is that we're healing souls one conversation at a time. So it is my hope that as I divulge this information to you that is breathed on me by the Holy Spirit, that you will take it and let it be as a sign of encouragement to you. Take it, go, conversate, and articulate it with someone else that you think may have a deep impact, and you guys get your own revelation and knowledge from it, and then just apply it to your life so that you can get a specified outcome. So we're not going to belabor the point. So today I am titling this podcast The Impact of Molestation. The impact of molestation. So many of us have had an opportunity to see a lot of things that have been going on in the news or social media in regards to rape, molestation, or any type of sexual assault. And so what I wanted to do, which actually has taken me a long time to do, is actually come forth as an advocate for those that have been sexually assaulted, because there are so many things that take place in being sexually assaulted. Like, I feel like it is a process, meaning a lot of times people that are sexually assaulted, it is by people that they actually know. And so that person has to groom them and create a gateway or a doorway or a pathway for them to trust them. A woman that is raped by a lover, this person has to spend time getting to know her, acting like he's getting to know her in order to build trust so that she will trust him, and then he will be able to go past certain boundaries to get his fleshly needs met. Let's just say that, right? Because it is a violation. And biblically, there are so many instances in the Bible where people have been raped and molested. I know of two off the top of my head. One is with Tamar, and she's a daughter, and she's just sexually assaulted. She's a young woman that's just going about her time in the village, and she's away from her parents, and she's sexually assaulted. There's another instance where a woman was a concubine of a man, and she was literally left outside a door and sexually assaulted and beat so bad that she passed away. This is literally in the Bible, and I never hear people actually preaching or talking about this. But God was using that as a way to show the wickedness in regards to sexual assault. And so we see now that a lot of it is coming out. Like, you'll see in a lot more people talk about it. You have things like the Me Too movement and things of that nature. But I want you to understand the spiritual sides, like the impact that it has on a person's spirit when they are sexually violated. So for my dissertation for my master's degree, I had to do a project. And so I decided to make myself the topic of the project. And so I decided to talk about molestation, because I myself have been an overcomer of molestation. In a Facebook group, I detailed like precise details, intimate details about the first time that I had been molested as a 10-year-old girl. Maybe, yeah, it had to be about 10 or 11 years old. And then after that, it was a trajectory of being touched. Anywhere that I went, whether it was by boys or girls, it was like, you know how they say when you do something like that scarlet letter on your back? That is literally what it does. It puts a letter of spiritual implication on your back to where another person that is dealing with maybe a predator or something like that can tell that you've been molested, and they'll come in and use that to their advantage. The interesting part is that it is oftentimes spiritual. So when I was touched improperly, I felt like it left like a stain and an imprint on me. You know, a lot of times women will detail about how dirty and gross that they feel after they've been raped and molested. That is because when it happens, a spirit literally comes onto that person. So it's like what you would call a transference. So that's just like if you have a white coat and it's blemish free, no spots, no dirt, no wrinkles, anything. And then something comes and smudges it. Let's just say red, right? That white coat is violated because no longer is it that clean, pure white stage that it was at. And so unfortunately with a red stain, everybody can see it. Oftentimes, when a person is molested, the unfortunate part is that if a woman is raped or violated, that man may have so many things on him spiritually. And so when he rapes that woman and violates her, we know that there's an integral part where there is sexual contact. And so what happens is it gets to the point where she is now harboring what he has on him, like it's a transference. And so as a person grows up and they begin to fill out in their lives and things of that nature, those things get activated, whether it's through pornography, whether it's through a violent relationship, whether it's through being abandoned or rejected. And then those things inside start to grow and fester and manifest into that person's identity. So let's just go back to the white coat. The white coat no longer is just a white coat. Now, whatever touched it, it has a white and red identity, meaning it's not the same. You get what I mean? So that person may even shove that coat to the side because it's not at its pure state. And we see this happen to a lot of women that are violated. Unfortunately, men or predators or people that are going to violate them only utilize them for sexual pleasure. I'm not even going to say intimacy, because intimacy is when someone sees you and actually loves you and values you. So this is not a level of intimacy. It's violation. And so as this woman grows older, we may see women that are extremely promiscuous, extremely lustful. They may go into careers such as the sex porn industry or pornography. They may also be victims of being sex trafficked. I mean, it's like you're known for what happened to you, and you don't even understand the severity of what happened to you. But it is a spiritual transference. This is what takes place spiritually. You literally take on what was put on you. And there's so many other areas that it goes into impact. Like it may impact your self-esteem, the way that you connect with people. When I did my paper, there were about 20 areas that molestation can affect. It said that women that are consistently and repeatedly raped, assaulted, or sexually assaulted, it can impact the way that they work, like their work ethic, because they'll be okay and then they may have a moment where they get triggered or something happens and then they stop having to work, which ultimately affects their finances, which can put them in poverty, homelessness. Of course, we know it affects your mental state, emotionally, physically. You may not like to be touched. There may be things that you may smell that take you back to the place. You may attract friends that are interested in exploiting you, because I've had that happen as well. I've had friends in my life. You would not consider them to be the male version. They're not a pimp, but they're a madam. So women come around to try and exploit that woman that has been sexually assaulted. There's so many areas, like the impact is devastating. And it leaves like a lingering residue on a person that has not been healed, that has not been able to go in and process what happened to them. And it could be quite lengthy, because when you're a child, oftentimes if you're touched, sometimes, if you're like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I've had clients and patients that have recalled things that have happened to them. But I've also had people like, okay, I know something happened to me, but because I was so young, I don't recall all the events. They may remember one or two things, like, okay, I was sat on the bed and then this happened. But the mind is still in a place of development, so they're not going to actually remember everything that took place. That also can be an issue when it comes to healing, because in order for healing to take place, do not misunderstand me, God can heal you without you remembering. But oftentimes when there is a need of a confession, like, okay, yes, I was molested, I was touched, I was groomed improperly, this is how healing can take place, because you can confess it, which means that if you can confess it, you can put truth to it in reality, like, okay, this really did take place. Mentally, I've seen people that have been molested that battle with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, personality disorder, dissociative disorder, so many different areas, right? Women have issues dating. Like, you can actually attract a predator that is just like someone that has molested and or raped you. But the thing is that if you haven't healed from it yet, you won't necessarily even see those warning signs like, okay, this person was not a good person that I should actually date or connect with because they remind me of the person that assaulted me. And just for a little bit of context, I will give you an example of that. So when I was extremely, extremely young, I was about 15 years old, 14, 15 years old, and I was getting more into dating, even though I was extremely young. And I was dating this guy, and I don't know what made me tell him this. Obviously, it was something on my spirit. Maybe I didn't completely understand it, but I told him, you remind me of the man that molested me. And now that I think back about it, because it was violating, and there were so many other violations that took place, whether they were mental, emotional, it was almost like this person had an obsession with me, but not actually to see me happy or fulfilled, right? It's like a possession, because when you are, essayed, it is like this person looks at you like a possession for pleasure, but you don't necessarily get the pleasure. And this is why I absolutely believe that a lot of women are in relationships where their needs, their wants, and desires are not actually fulfilled. Like, this man may look at them as an object of pleasure for himself, but she herself is never pleased, right? And we know a lot of times when a person is molested or raped, that perpetrator will make them act like they enjoy it. They will make them seem as though they are happy about it. If you have ever had that happen, that's going to go into many areas of your life. You can be at a job and you're not happy, but you'll stay. You'll be in a friendship that's violating you, but you'll stay because you have not yet put the correct terminology with the situation that you were raped, that you were violated, that you were molested, and you didn't like it. And until we as people come to the point where we can put the appropriate terminology on things and to actually acknowledge, I didn't like that, I don't want that, your spirit is going to be in a place of confusion. Like, we all know with sexual intimacy that it is pleasurable, right? But even when you're, essayed, it does seem as though it's pleasurable to the body, but if it's not something that's consensual, it is traumatizing. But if you have to lie to yourself and tell yourself that you liked it when you didn't, and you were actually living out a lie, this can actually permeate into other areas of your life. The impact of molestation on a person's mind. So traumatizing. Like, it is very ironic to me because I even see this with women in relationships. And I just actually talked about this yesterday. That woman will not like that man. She doesn't have any real interest in him, but she'll keep him around as a false form of comfort, but she genuinely won't like him. Like, you can hear this in women. Like, they will call their friends, they will talk about this man and just literally shred his whole life, everything about him, just literally don't like him. And so I've always wondered, okay, well, if you don't like him and everything that he does, why do you stay? And a lot of the women I have talked to in those instances, they have been sexually assaulted by someone. So we know that in instances where someone has, they are forced to remain in that moment, even though they don't want to be there. And so there are trauma responses. It is flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. And I absolutely do believe that a lot of women are actually frozen in relationships that serve no purpose in their life. They're not loved. There's no compassion. There's no understanding. This man doesn't even have a level of intimacy with her. Women are just doing whatever they can to please this man because it makes him happy. This is another component of molestation. It is just literally as you grow up, you learn to be a people pleaser because in those instances, you had to please that person. We don't know when a woman was essayed that if she didn't do it, if a man held a gun at her hand and she didn't say that she didn't like it or act like it was pleasing to her, if he wouldn't have ended her life. And so I think about a lot of these instances because it even went deeper when I was doing my research, and it talked about how a woman or a person when they're essayed, how can it even affect their relationship with the Lord, with God? Because When something that traumatic happens to you, it can cause you to question God. Like, where were you? Why did this happen to me? Why did you let it happen to me this long? I do have an interview on my platform, The Dialogue, where I talked to a young woman. I actually got an opportunity to interview her. And she was essayed from the time she was like, I want to say 12 or 13 to 18. When she got older, she moved out. And she said she would pray all the time because it was also actually happening to her sister. And she would pray all the time, and God would tell her, just hold on, hold on. And so even though she was able to keep her relationship with God and cultivate her relationship with God, she was going through a traumatic experience. And God was telling her to hold on in that experience. Like, you're not going to get out of it just yet, but hold on. Now she is a spokeswoman for God in regards to talking about her testimony. But can you imagine that? Someone literally violating you every day or every other day. Like, you come home and, to me, in my heart, it was like, how could your mom not know? But then where I'm at is understanding that it has happened to a lot of mothers. It has happened to a lot of grandmothers and things. It's happened to a lot of men. Men have been sexually assaulted and raped. And unfortunately, a lot of them don't come out and talk about it. I think it's hard enough for a woman too, but we know that it is more, I'm not going to say appropriate, but a lot of men don't want to talk about their masculinity or their manhood being stolen from them in that capacity. They don't want people to put that imprint on them because, like I said, it goes back to the white coat with the red letter, the scarlet letter. It's like you have the scarlet letter M that you've been molested or violated. A lot of men don't want to be seen like that. And so I completely understand. The part for me that is really interesting is that I feel as though God has given me an anointing and a passion to help people that have been molested, because I understand how much of a person's life it can take, the mental turmoil that can happen to a person that has been violated in that capacity, especially if you knew the perpetrator, especially if you were groomed by the perpetrator. And so if you think about any type of SA, sexual, assault, there are many different types. Like, there's rape, there's molestation, there's sex trafficking, and all things of that nature. And they're all traumatic in their own variations of experiences. The most important part is to acknowledge it and make sure that you go through therapy or assistance to be healed from it, so it doesn't continue to impact your life in a way that it steals your life, it steals your resiliency, it steals your determination to have a relationship with the Lord. And that's what I've come to the understanding. Like, any type of trauma, no matter the level or severity, it is all for the purpose of the enemy to take our relationship from God. A person that is assaulted in that measures, some of the attributes of the perpetrator are going to come on that person, because we know that biblically it even says that once you have sex with a person, you conjoin with them. So you've had a spiritual connection to that person. This is the violation. It's not like you wanted to, but it has happened. And so we as people have to start getting into the deep crevices in our hearts and our souls and asking ourselves, what actually happened to me? You'll hear a lot of people say, I felt different. I don't like myself. They'll do things. I've had people, because I'm also a chemical dependency counselor, so I actually work with a lot of people that have been violated. And they have used sex. They have used sex, drugs, alcohol, and substances in order to try to appease or remove the residue of the situation. But it only makes it worse. Like, you use an outside factor to attempt to heal you, it doesn't work. People oftentimes use food. They use overspending. They use overindulging in television, pornography, drugs, and alcohol, just anything that is too excessive. And it's the fact that you're not dealing with the issue that really took place. You're using other things to try to suffice it, but it doesn't work. And so when you are impacted by molestation, you do have to go through a healing process and a healing journey. And it is going to be for your soul and your spirit, because you will have a spirit and a soul wound that can come up at any different interval or interaction in life. I've had instances where I've been around people and I just felt like that chilling feeling, like, oh, it's just something about them, and then it came out later that they were a rapist or a child, pedophile or something of that nature. It's like, even when you're healed from it, which is a beautiful thing, which means you're not always easily triggered. But I have been able to help so many other people because I can actually tell when someone's around them, like, okay, they're only around them because they're using them for sex. They're only around them because they're exploiting them and using them for cash or money, but they're using sex to dull their senses, because we know when you're having sex, it is something that God has given us in the confines of marriage. It's meant to be an act of worship. So if you look at it, anything outside of that, especially being sexually assaulted or violated, that's not worship to God. So who is it worship towards? And I always wondered, why is it so many people that have been molested and raped? Because it's the easiest way to transfer a spirit. It's the easiest way to skew somebody's identity. It's the easiest way to make someone mad at God. And this is what the enemy uses. I mean, we have all been paying attention to, different things that have been coming about on social media in regards to, and I don't even want to say it, but a lot of celebrities are coming forth, in regards to things that have happened to them. More movies are coming out about the violations of women in the industry and just in life in general. And unfortunately, it can happen anywhere. I don't even want to detail a lot of things that I've saw, but I know for sure one of my favorite shows, maybe years ago, and I still sometimes watch it, was Law and Order, the SVU, Sexual Victims Unit, because it was a relief for me to actually see them catch the perpetrator and how dedicated they were to having a unit that was committed to rectifying and bringing vindication to victims. But a lot of times in the world, this does not always happen. It is very traumatizing to actually go and talk to someone and relive the events. So I can understand a person that wants to push it down. I can understand a person that doesn't want to relive it. I can understand a person that wants to just move on with their life. But if you understood how many areas it impacts in your life, it is not necessarily that you're moving forward. It is literally that you're just trying to forget. And forgetting without healing is a recipe for disaster, because you're not actually dealing with the root cause of the issue. Let's just say the root cause of the issue, it wasn't your fault. There was nothing that you can do. The root cause of the issue is that you were targeted by the enemy. The root cause of the issue is that when we're children, even our parents oftentimes don't know how to protect us. You let your kid go somewhere you think that they're safe, and they're not. Nowadays, you let your kid go into the restroom simply to use the restroom. They're violated. You let your kids go to daycare. They're violated. You let your kids stay at a cousin's house. They're violated by an uncle or an aunt. I've had instances where women were violated by women. I myself was violated by women when I was a child. And so all these things for the enemy to imprint perversion and lust and so many other things on you, so that by the time that you look at yourself, you don't even realize that it's you. Not only do you not realize that it's you, you don't even like what you see. If you think about a veil goes over someone's face. So sometimes when you meet somebody on first impact, you don't always know the spirit of that person. But sometimes they can see that spirit in them, can see the violation on you, and that you're going to be an easy target in order to violate again. And so healing actually closes the door. Healing makes it to where that person can't see in your soul that you've been violated. They may not know what happened to you, but there's a level of brokenness that comes to a person that has been violated. And so we as people have to understand, what are we doing with ourselves? How are we healing? What are we using? Because drugs, alcohol, sex, anything that you overindulge in is not the best way to heal. It only does more damage to your soul. There are things that I recommend, but today I want to really focus on the impact, because I want you to take a moment and sit with yourself and understand. If I was targeted by the enemy as a child, when I couldn't even articulate what happened to me, what is God trying to say to me? because I know that people that have been violated are very special people. They are wonderful people, very, very nice. But then we also have instances where people are extremely angry and upset. Like, why did this happen to me? Why was I victimized by this? I didn't do anything wrong. I was just at work. I was just at school. I was doing good things, because the enemy has an agenda to steal, kill, and destroy. And so if he can steal your innocence through being molested or raped, if he can cause you to have an identity crisis, meaning you may even get older and start dressing a certain type of way, wear your hair a certain type of way. It's not that you actually like it, but these are things that have been imprinted on your soul. You have to go through the purging, the self-acceptance, right? It can even affect your self-esteem, your confidence. I remember there was a time where I was talking and, dating a gentleman, and I don't know if he had been sexually assaulted or not, but I know by the time that I got done dealing with him, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I literally had to go and get prayer, because whatever was on him, and I'm believing that it was low self-esteem, because then I myself started to have problems with it. And this is also a thing, you deal with women or men that don't like themselves and are going to do anything to not feel that the truth that they don't like themselves, and then you get involved with them and then you don't like yourself. I mean, the list goes on and on and on once you're violated. It is so deep. Especially if the violation happened for years. Even one account is enough, let alone if it happened for years, right? And so with all that being said, I wrote a book in 2010. I started to write this book, and it was intricately detailed in regards to instances about molestation and rape. And it even have instances in there where it talks about men. It is a storyline. It is a story of a character. Her name is Vanessa, and she's going through life scarred. And she has to go on this healing journey that God has specifically designated for her. And she takes it. And at the end, she finds her identity. She finds her purpose. Ultimately, she finds healing and wholeness. And on this journey of life, this is exactly what you want to find. There is no purpose to be in life if you're not healed and whole and living the abundant life that God has for you. But unfortunately, molestation comes to try to steal that opportunity for you to live an abundant life, to connect with people that really see you. And so so I'll link that information if you are interested in purchasing the book. I've done book clubs, I've done sessions and seminars with people. I am a qualified mental health specialist, which means that I talk to people about this all the time. It is just now to expand the vision to help so many other people, because as of right now, I do it in my local area of where I'm located state-wise. But now it's just time to expand, because I understand that this thing affects more people than who is actually willing to come forth and talk about it. Because it's difficult to say you were molested by a dad or a stepdad, or I don't even want to just keep it with the men, because I know a lot of women that have molested women too. I know a lot of women that have been molested by women, whether it be a sister and a sister. So at the end of the day, if you have not healed, who are you? What is your real identity outside of being violated? And then the interesting part too is that if you are violated, it doesn't even have to go back into you being violated sexually. You can be violated mentally and emotionally. There's like a pull, and I equate it to prostitution. Now, when we think about prostitution, there are some women that willingly go and allow themselves to be exploited sexually for substances, materials, and cash. But when you're molested and you did not give authorization, those things can still be exploited from you, and you could be used for those things as well. So I'm going to continue to detail about this subject because it is very close to my heart. And I know that God has a lot of people on his mind, because he wants his people to be healed, set free, and delivered. He wants his people to live maximum lives. He wants them to know that he loved them even while the situation was taking place, that he was there for them, that he did not allow it to, that he didn't permit it to happen. Like, it wasn't at his doing, like, okay, go and molest that girl. You know what I mean? Like, go and take that man's manhood. That was not God's doing, but he can use it to heal you and put you on a path to where your mental state is at peace from what took place, that you have forgiven your abusers and offenders, whether it be one or many. And so I'm going to link a lot of information in the description box. Thank you so much for tuning into today's broadcast. I really wanted to focus on the impact of molestation. And as time goes on, I will detail recommendations, suggestions, and solutions for you. But as of right now, it is literally just to sit with yourself, acknowledge if you have been violated, and allow God to give you comfort, to know that He loves you, He's with you, and He has not abandoned you. So as you know, on our show, our mantra is that we're healing souls one conversation at a time. Thank you so much for tuning into today's broadcast. We will be back with more insight at a later day. Don't forget to follow. If you are on the podcast platform of Apple and Spotify, please don't forget to subscribe. If you're listening to YouTube, you can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.